Hey guys, it's Sean Miller again, and welcome back to my Week 7 video assignment, my demonstration speech. For this week's assignment, I get to talk to you about something I think is a lot of fun, and it's something I actually get to teach for a living, and that's firearms. Now, the area of firearms I'm going to be talking to you about today is basic marksmanship instruction. Now, there's a lot that goes into that, and I don't have a lot of time. The average class takes about 2 hours of classroom time, and then many more hours of range time to become proficient with this. So I decided to break it down into two key areas, and that's going to be weapon safety, and then how to break the weapon apart and then put it back together again. Now, with weapon safety, you can never be too careful. So where I recommend everyone starts is reading the instruction manual that comes with the weapon. This is going to contain a lot of good and useful information you can use to make sure the weapon you're using stays fully functional as well as stays in safe operating mode. The other thing I recommend you do is you seek out instruction from a certified firearms instructor. This person is going to be able to give you a lot of the great information you read in your manual, but really lay it down in a way that's really easy to understand, as well as give you the practical instruction you need to become proficient with your firearm. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is weapon storage. There are several commercial locks available that you can use to prohibit anyone getting into your weapon and using it without your approval. This lock right here is great for children. It keeps them out of there, and it prevents any type of ammunition being introduced into the weapon itself. So it really makes it safe. The next thing is, where do you store your weapon? Do you store it under your mattress? Do you store it in your pillowcase? Or do you keep it in a nice safe lockbox? I hope it is the latter of the three. And there are many different types of lockboxes out there, and you really want to find one that works well for you, works within your budget, and is really practical. It could be a lock you use to get into with a key, or it can be a combination, which really does offer the best level of protection. So, let's get into the breaking the weapon down. This is the Smith & Wesson M&P 40 compact semi-automatic pistol. So what semi-automatic means is for every time I depress the trigger, one round will fire. It's not like an automatic weapon where if I just hold down the trigger, everything that's in the magazine will go through the weapon. So it's just one round. So the first step to making a weapon safe and empty, and also to break it down, is to remove the source of ammunition. So what I need to do is I'm going to remove the magazine first. And that's done by hitting the magazine release button, which is this little button right here. So I push it down, you can see the magazine popping out, and I just remove that from the magazine well. Now, as you can see, I've already made this weapon safe and empty, and there is no ammunition in this magazine, but we're still going to go through the processes because you can never be too safe. The next thing I'm going to do is keeping my finger straight and off the trigger, so you see I'm not touching the trigger in any way. This is what we call point index. I'm going to reach up and I'm going to grip these serrated edges on the back of the slide here. And I'm going to work the slide, pushing it all the way back to the rear 3 separate times. So I do it like this. 1, 2, and then 3. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to lock the slide back to the rear. Now that's accomplished by pushing the slide again back far enough to take this locking block right here, this catch, and then hitting it with these little notches right here. So I'm going to push it all the way back, and you can see that it locks back to the rear as I pushed up on the slide catch right there. So now I have what's called the extractor, or the ejection port, and you can see the extractor right there. That's that big silver tab sticking in the middle of it. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to look inside the well, and I'm going to make sure there is nothing in there. You can see my finger sticking through there. I'm going to look up, and I'm going to check the chamber of the weapon, which is that little circle you see in the center. Now I'm going to look back in the magazine well, still nothing there, you can see, and look back up in the chamber. Good deal, this weapon is now safe to work with. The Smith & Wesson M&P has another safety point in there that is, I think, heads and shoulders over other weapons out there, and that is a sear deactivation lever. Now this does require a bit of a tool this is an ink pen, to help break this weapon down, but it is what helps make this weapon absolutely safe, so you don't have to actually depress the trigger to take it apart. So I need to find that inside, and I'll show it to you once I take it apart because it's kind of hard to see in this setting. So I push the sear deactivation lever down. You can kind of see it right there, that little tiny dog leg right underneath the ejector. So next thing I need to do is I'll flip it around so you can see. this takedown lever right here, which is in a 3 o'clock position, I'm going to rotate it down to the 6. So you can see that's right there. And what that does is that removes the block that's inside the weapon so the slide can go forward. So, working it again, I'm going to pull the slide back. You can hear it disengage. And I'll pull it all the way off. So I have 2 separate pieces now. I have my frame, which I'll put right here, and I have my slide assembly. Now the slide assembly is comprised of a few different pieces. Keeping in mind this thing right here, because this is under a little bit of tension, I need to make sure I keep pressure on that so it doesn't fly out. This is my recoil spring guide rod assembly. So I'll squeeze it and I'll pull it out. And you can see this is made up of 2 different pieces. There's a rod in there and there's a spring that goes around it, which keeps the weapon under tension so it stays in that original position that you saw. I'll put that down right there. Next thing I'm going to take out is the barrel and locking block assembly. This is one piece on this particular weapon. However, if you're familiar with a Beretta or another one, there's a little wing locking block which kind of swings up here and falls out at the worst opportune times. So another reason why I think this is a better weapon, because that's one whole piece. And I'll put that down right there. The last thing is the slide itself. This is the heaviest part of the weapon, also the part that's under the most tension. A lot of stuff going on the inside of here. This is the firing pin, the back of it. So all that stuff, all the housing for that, all the other springs are contained within this area right here. And you really don't want to take this thing down any further unless you're a certified armor, and that's a pretty lengthy course to get into. Alright, so as you can see, when field stripping a weapon, you're going to have 4 different pieces. It's going to be your frame, your recoil spring guide rod assembly, your barrel, and then your slide. And we're going to put it back together now. Just to do that, you're going to do an exact opposite order, which we use to take it apart. So I'm going to pick up my slide, I'm going to pick up my barrel, and I'm going to insert it barrel side first into the slide and pull it back so it seats flush. You can hear it clicking around in there, and you can see the bottom how it's flush. With the Smith & Wesson, a little cheat on there, and as long as it reads 40 Smith & Wesson, which you can see it right there, you know you put it back together, at least the first step, correctly. So keeping this down in this position is going to make it easiest. I'm going to take my recoil spring guide rod assembly, and for the Smith & Wesson again, I'm going to look for the little hex head, which is on the end there. The other side of this is a small flat, there's a round disc, totally flat. You can see the hexagon head on here. And I'll put it into the front. I have to push it in and then make sure it seats in the locking block. Now, like I said before, this is under some tension, so I need to keep pressure on it myself to make sure it doesn't fly out. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my frame, double check to make sure the takedown lever is still in the 6 o'clock position, and I can use my thumb to hold this on here now. As I mentioned before, the sear deactivation lever is this little dog leg right here, and what that does is that drops the sear over here, which is that little silver tab, so that can remove the slide from the weapon. So again, to put it back on, the slots that are on the back of here, right over the tabs that are on the frame right there. So tab A, slot B, feeding it from the front, working it over slowly, making sure I watch out for the extractor right there, pulling it over, and I push it all the way to the rear, locking it back just like we did before so I can see my nice ejection port. Turn the weapon back over, my takedown lever, I'm going to return that to the original position, watch the way it snaps back in. Yeah, that's usually what happens at the most inopportune time, like when I'm in front of the class, or the first couple takes of this video when I was trying to prepare for you guys today. So, flipping it back over. Next thing I need to do is I need to make sure that sear deactivation lever, which you can see right there, return that to the position. So once I return it to position, you won't be able to see it anymore. You can see that it's gone. That's the last step in putting it back together. Now we have to do a functions check. And I'm going to do that like this. Getting my good firm grip on the weapon. I'm going to work the action of the slide 3 times, just like we did before. 1, 2, and 3. Put my finger on the trigger and I should hear click, no bang. Yep, there's the click. Keeping the finger depressed on the trigger. I'm going to work the slide again, and I'll hear the reset of the trigger. Click, click, just like that. And I lock it back to the rear. So, now I know I've reassembled this weapon correctly, and I've done it very safe, and there are no mishaps, which is definitely a good thing. Alright, like I said, I hope you enjoy this information. I really enjoy teaching this kind of stuff, and I look forward to see you guys again next time. Take care.